Thank you. I always think I should take that part about being a California attorney off of my resume. I'm not a Californian, although I grew up in New York. But we're one of the ones you talked about. We moved to Texas in the year 2000, and we felt like we came home. We thought, my gosh, we've always been Texans. We just didn't know it. So love Texas. I'll tell you very quickly that I have a bunch of great questions, or I hope they're great questions for Chad. I gave a little flyer for you. And so my talk show was on Salem Radio for 5 years. And then very wisely, I moved away from Salem to I don't like the P word podcast, but moved it to a lovely studio in Dallas. So I've been doing that 2.5 years. The best move I ever made is 4 days a week. And so one side of this tells you how to find the show. It's on all social media, and definitely the newer social media, Rumble and all that. I've been punished and taken down on YouTube so many times that it's still up there, but they're regularly punishing me and sending me threatening letters. It's okay. But the show is really about saving America. It's the entire point. It's discussing the unique greatness of America, and the job of every generation of patriots is to defend this country and hold on to the liberty that our founders meant for us to have. So that's the show. Really great. Lots of great guests. Oh, tomorrow in studio I have I have people in Stewart. Congressman Gomert's coming in tomorrow. I love him. Yeah, I love him. And you get talking, and he's so funny. I'm laughing. I can't even keep my place in my outline. But anyway, he's coming tomorrow to talk about the very serious issues in Washington. And then the other side, I hosted a conference last year in September at South Fork Ranch. And so the other side of your flyer here, my little short flyer, is the summit we're having this year. I call it Women for Freedom, but it's America Can We Talk Summit. It's going to be at a bigger venue this year with a great turnout. September 18th. You can find out about it on our website. We have some great, really national spokespeople type people coming. Gordon Chines to talk about China. Okay, I'm not going to run through the list. We have great speakers coming, and we have really interactive, wonderful conferences. I hope you'll look it up. So the information's on the flyer. And also, I love what you said about the three of you. I will tell you, Don Huffines is a good friend. Love his wife and him. Alan West has been a good friend forever, and his wife. So glad to meet you. I'm so glad that this idea of just the goal is to restore Texas and America, and to therefore get rid of Abbott. And so any one of these three are wonderful choices. So having said that, let me ask you something specific about schools. I had people on my show who were talking about the idea that the schools are so far gone, and this critical race theory has worked its way into not just the curricula, like the books, but the online learning. Like you think your kid's over there on the computer learning multiplication tables, and behind everything they're learning is critical race theory. These ladies, these are advocates, they're saying we have to get rid of online learning, digital learning, and go back to paper, pencil, and books. Is that too extreme, or is that what's needed?
100%, absolutely. We've got to get our children back in the classroom. We also have to untie the hands of our educators. I've always said that there's two jobs that should be harder to get and should be more compensated. One is law enforcement officers, and another is educators. We've got issues in all of that. Right now we have educators whose hands are tied. They're not educating, they're training for a test. The STAR test is a horrible thing for our kids. I'm not opposed to standardized tests per se, and I want to get specifically to what you just asked. For instance, I think that before you can graduate high school in the state of Texas, you should have to be able to pass the citizenship test. We don't know who we are. We've got to get rid of the unions. It's like a tumor that's grown into our organs, and we just don't know how to extract ourselves from it. The Department of Education is a joke. The Department of Education teaches no one anything. We've got to fight back about that and fight back against that. And we've got to give our teachers the ability to go out, educate, test, evaluate, and do the jobs they were trained and hired to do. And right now they're not allowed to do that. And they're being bombarded with a lot of what I call oblique attacks, things that are coming in from the side and hitting them and bombarding them. They're not able to speak. I heard one man this morning who was just relieved of his duty as a teacher because the vice principal told him, said, "You're not allowed to affect that student's behavior in your classroom." The student was sitting there texting all day long, wouldn't get off the phone, wouldn't leave the phone on. That teacher was stopping him from doing that. They fired the teacher. This is where we are. We got the inmates running the asylum, folks. So this is what we've got to get back to. And listen, the TEA, that's a fight. It's a fight. And I've had people come at me and say, well, we got to, no, forget your unions. Forget your educational unions, forget your Department of Education, forget all that stuff. Let's let teachers be teachers. Let's train them to do their jobs, let them do their jobs. And these little bleak attacks like critical race theory, which is just a repackaged Marxist deal of critical theory that's been around for a long, long time. There's no place for Marxism, communism, socialism. And I'm telling you, we should absolutely penalize the school boards that allow nonsense like that to be taught to our kids.
I love that. You made this one out again, I guess.
You too.
Okay. Is it something I said?
Yeah, it's kind of touchy.
Oh, it's on a timer, I think. No. How about this? Okay, hello. You mentioned earlier about the government, the federal government's talking about having people knock on doors of households to check on your vaccine status. I saw 2 governors, I think it was South Carolina and Arkansas, Missouri and South Carolina, that just announced, we're not having that here. You are not welcome in our state. You cannot knock on doors. Yeah. So I assume as the governor of Texas, you would say something similar. And I'm pretty sure Governor Abbott has not said that, as far as I know, right?
He's not, to my knowledge, he hasn't said anything like that. Your property, your domain should be yours. You should be able to determine who comes on your property. And I've heard things about you need to post this or you need to post that. Now we did this because I like my sense of humor, and we made these things. And I also want you to tell you to vote for me. But it should be illegal for people to come in and solicit a vaccine, a quote vaccine. We don't do door-to-door jabs in the state of Texas. We're not going to allow it.
It's not a violation of HIPAA.
It is a violation of HIPAA, and it's a violation. It's a number of things, and they found their ways to try to skirt around that, which that's what government does. We got to get government out of our life. And these are kind of things where some of you good old boys in here, like me, remember that here in Texas we have a castle law that, I tell you what, I can build a covering all the way down my walkway and consider that inside my house that you got to walk through to get to my door.
10 seconds. Get out of the
That's right. But I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I also say that seriously. We will not, absolutely will not allow that. Can't happen.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In the state of Texas, the law says you tell somebody to get off your property and they don't do it, that's criminal trespass.
It's criminal trespass, yeah. You can't shoot them because they won't leave. But
Hell off my property. If they don't try and walk off, I'm calling the sheriff's department, slam the door.
Yes, sir. And yeah. And then also hire uslawshield.com.
I've already got
For a few bucks a month, they'll represent you after you shoot somebody.
I love that discussion about the rights in your home. It's really interesting about how our culture's changed. Younger people, I think, maybe in the millennial ages, some of them, you tell them about this knocking on the door idea about the vaccines, and they say, well, that's kind of nice. The government cares. They're trying to make sure. And so there has been a cultural shift between generations where younger people kind of welcome it as a kind thing. So part of the mission of you and any governor is to, honest to goodness, bring the message of reinvigorate conservatism among young people. So I want to know, has your campaign, do you have some way you're outreaching to young people? Are you trying to inspire them again about loving liberty and thinking of it as a natural right? I mean, this is vital.
Okay, so one of the things that I believe that we've got to do is we've got to make history alive again, but we've made history palatable. History's not designed to be palatable. History has its ugly points, it has its high points, it has its low points. History is about man's inhumanity to man, but it's also about man rising above the challenges of culture and the times in which they live. And these days we're so thin-skinned. We've got to pull down this monument, pull down that monument. I'm offended by this, and everybody is using their offendedness like some form of currency. We've got to get our children past that. We've got to get our generations past that and stop. And one of the ways we do that is we stop being so thin-skinned ourselves. We've become really weak, really milquetoast weak. And to your point, I think when we teach history and we make history come alive and we teach it unapologetically, and we enable the generation to see that they are still writing that story, I think that the problem begins to solve itself in a lot of ways. Suddenly, I taught my kids, I got 5 kids, 3 dogs, a cat, and a vasectomy. And let me tell you guys, I say that in Utah, and they tell me those are rookie numbers. But listen, I spanked my kids. The beauty of having a big family is you don't have to beat them all. You just cut one out of the herd and let the rest watch while you beat that one. And they learn. You send her limping to her bedroom and hope she's not the one that picks out your nursing home. But what I did was I didn't want to teach my kids right from wrong. You're like, what? See, right for me and right for you may be 2 different things. The Apostle Paul said, I can eat all the meat I want that's been sacrificed to idols. But it bothers you, I won't do it. It's wrong for you, it's okay for me. So our right and my wrong may be 2 different things. What I taught my kids was a value system. If you learn to value your state, value your community, value your nation, value your history, value your identity, value your education, value your money, so on and so forth, you will make the right decisions about those values. And to the degree that we get back to educating our children in that way, so we've lost a value-based education. Education used to be in the hands of the church. We got lazy. It used to be in the hands of the parents and in the hands of the church. We got lazy, and what do? We turn it over to the state. There's only 3 institutions that have to be taken over for us to lose our country. They've already taken 2, and the third one is on the decline. One is education, the other is the courts, and the third is the media. The courts are about to fall. They've already taken the media, they've taken our education system. We changed that, we teach a value system, a value-based education, and I think when we build curriculum around that, and we're not training kids to the test, I think that problem solves itself.
You mentioned earlier, there we go. I can do it myself. Yeah, okay.
She hadn't pushed anything, Pastor.
Okay.
We made fun of you for 30 minutes. It was good.
It's clearly on a timer. I think that's what's happening. In my defense, I didn't touch anything. It's on a timer. We talked about earlier, and it's very true, the recent elections in Texas, the rural areas are saving Texas from the left. I mean, the rural areas, the small towns. We live in Dallas proper. We come up here, we're like, oh my gosh, we love being up here. These kind of people, salt of the earth, you're the ones saving Texas. And I really wish there could be a plan on the part of conservatives, bring conservatism to the cities. And I know there's a Republican Party in every city, in every county, and they have functions, but there's got to be a rejuvenation. This is a very hard question, I know, but a rejuvenation of the cities to embrace the idea of Texas too. That seems, well embraced here in the rural areas. So how are you going to do that? I'm asking hard questions, but how are you going to do that?
No, well, historically speaking, if you have a conversation with the average man or woman that's in the city, you're going to find that you have more in common than you think. I can walk into a restaurant and I don't start picking out the differences of politics or asking them who they voted for or anything like that. They're just people, and we try to be nice to each other, and we try to use Southern hospitality even if we don't mean it. I learned growing up in Georgia we don't always mean it. And y'all all know what bless your heart means. But we got to get to a point where we're better at educating people, or at least expressing ourselves with conservative values. That we're behind the 8 ball in a big way on that. The media has done that. The narrative Hollywood has done that. Government has done that. You're all racists, whether you know it or not. You are. That's what they call you, so just own it. And then go on, be conservatives, and keep preaching the conservative message. But I think to the degree that we can communicate, whether it's in the field, like I said in that poem, Walt Mason, out in the deserts of sand, out in the fields, in the cities, it doesn't matter. You deliver the goods. When you deliver the goods, you deliver the right message, I think you win people over. I've got a good friend of mine. I've been in the entertainment business for years. I've got representation in LA, in Hollywood, and I'll go out there and visit with management out there in some of these studios, and Fox and ABC and CBS and all these different ones. And it's a cesspool as well. And I'll sit there and I'll talk to them and I'll say, why are you liberal? Why are you progressive? And they start, because my family. That's how I grew up. That's all I've ever known. And I'm like, well, when you start making money, you won't be liberal anymore.
No.
Now, you might claim to be, but you're not. These folks in Hollywood, they claim to be progressive, they claim to be liberals, but they live very conservative. But see, what we got to do is we got to get back to showing people that. We got to get back to showing what capitalism does as an economic structure. It's lifted more people out of poverty than any other economic structure in the history of man. We've got to show them what small government does. It gets the government out of your way. We got to show them what it's like to be deregulated. You know, Shelley, we talked about it. You know, somebody wants to work in a hair salon. What if they're great at cutting hair, but they're horrible at filling out applications and doing all the registrations you got to do just to get certified and regulated to cut hair? You know, when we show people that really conservatism is a whole lot better and prosperous way of life, I think we can communicate to those people in the cities.
Couldn't agree more. I want to talk about the immigration situation. So in Dallas County, we have a major population of minor children, or nearly adults, or 16 to 18 years old in our convention center. And I think a lot of people were responding to the border situation, saying, well, they've crossed the border, Biden's team has let them in, what are we going to do with them? Do you think as governor we should be really firm and say no more housing, no more immigrant housing, illegal immigrant housing in Texas? We get really tough on that, or is that too hard to do?
What we have to do is we have to stop that problem before it gets here, and we have to address that. That's what we've gotten bad at doing, because let's face it, we are a compassionate people. We are altruistic, we are giving, we are generous. We're the most generous nation in the history of man. This is a humanitarian crisis. These are human beings whose lives we value coming to our border. We have to ask ourselves why they're coming to our border. We have to make demands on the countries they're leaving, because we, as a government, are sending tens of billions of dollars down to these nations without any accountability being held on what they do with that money. These democratic dictators that run these countries are misusing these funds, and these people have nowhere to go, and they hear that the lights are turned on like Motel 6 in the United States of America, and they come marching up here. Now in Valverde County, there has been, this year, there's been 83 nations that have crossed our southern border. Ain't that many below our border. They're coming from Yemen, they're coming from Oman, they're coming from Pakistan, they're coming from Iraq. They're not coming from France. So what we've got to do is we've got to stop this problem before it gets here. And once it gets here, that's another thing. But we got to stop this. We've got to make it so that when they get to our border, they are turned back. Now see, Donald Trump did a good job. I met with Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez down in Valverde County. He's a Democrat. He can't help it. He just can't help it. But we spent 2 hours with him in his office the other day, in his conference room. And I said, what'd you think of the Trump administration? He said, I didn't like the Trump administration, but they closed the border. See, the Trump administration had Mexico incentivized to turn the illegals back before they got to our border. He said, I voted for this administration, but I don't like it because we're out of control. So we got to stop the problem before they get here. So to your point, yes, busing illegals further into the interior of our state and ultimately our country, we cannot do. Now here's what I would like to do just once, and I'm serious about this, because I saw the buses leaving. I want to go down there with the Texas Rangers, charter about 12 buses, and I want to load them up with illegals, and I want the Texas Rangers to escort those buses to Washington, D.C. And I want them to pull right up on the steps of the Capitol building and open that bus door and drive off. Welcome to America.
Yep.
Deal with it, AOC. Deal with it, Dianne Feinstein. Deal with it, Chuck Schumer. Deal with it, Squad. Deal with it, Joe Biden. Deal with it, Kamala. There it is. There's a dozen of them. A dozen buses unloaded. Washington, D.C.
I got the first 100, I'll give you to do that.
There you go. I'm dead serious about this. We don't have, we can load the buses for free. They'll get on it. They're glad to go. We'll give them chicken and tortillas and whatever they want. And grape soda and tequila, and I'll ride with them. And let's go. And let's open the doors in D.C. You want them? Here they are. But to your point, it's a humanitarian crisis. We have to deal with that. It's going to be a complex solution. for this complex problem, but we got to stop them before they get here. Everybody in this room's heart breaks when they see a 3, 4, 5-year-old left.
Right.
And you find a human being in a ranch somewhere passed out, and you got to go up there, and the Border Patrol is told, just see if they're breathing first, because what they may have done is kill them, disembowel them, put drugs in them, and sewn them back up, and left them for smugglers to pick up the body. Well, our hearts break for this. I know that. But to equip our Border Patrol, to equip our DPS, to equip our troopers, and my good friend Victor Avila, many of you know Victor. He wrote a great book, Agent Under Fire. He was shot up by the cartels in an ambush. His Jaime, his partner, lost his life in the ambush. And Victor was with us down there. We were talking about this the other day. Victor says, what I want to see, and I agree with this, he said, wouldn't it be great if just one day all of those troopers, all of those agents lined up at the river, and when they come across in those boats, they come across in those caravans, you stopped them and you said, not today. Not coming in today. Turn around, go back. You will not come in today. It would reverberate in less than 12 hours to the depths of Central and South America. And the cartels would say, what the hell do you mean my shipment didn't get in there? And the phones would start ringing because Washington, D.C. would say, what do you mean you didn't let them in? We've got to enforce the laws that are on the books. We're not doing it. Then we don't deal with that issue.
I was going to mention Victor Avila is one of the people speaking at my conference on September 18th, and he's this other lady in Washington who works at this immigration think tank she's been really good because she can run through numbers, because part of what happens is people in America think it's so unfair. America's not generous enough. We don't let enough people in. So she'll run through the numbers we bring in, and the numbers have changed, and how just the extraordinary growth of just illegal alien population in America, just because we don't enforce the law. So Victor Avila is great. You would love to follow him.
Fantastic. One of the best guys out there.
Yep. Okay, I don't know if anyone else had questions. I can keep on rolling. I have lists and lists here, and I don't know if people had a chance to, I don't know where I am in time either. I can't tell this.
We have about 10 minutes.
Oh, we have 10 minutes. Okay, let me just hand you the microphone. You want to do that?
It'll probably die on me. What just did?
Well, don't touch it. No, go ahead.
So much for the ever-ready bunny.
What?
You're fine. It's on.
Okay, hello.
It takes a second to come on if it's glowing.
I talk pretty loud anyway. What I'm trying to say is, if you run and
Alan.
And Don.
and John run, if all three of them run, and each one of you get 40% of the vote, and what's his name?
Abbott.
Greg Abbott, or what's
Greg Abbott.
That columnist is anyway. Anyway, if he gets 45%, then there's going to be a runoff, right? Then it would just be between two.
Exactly right.
Okay.
That's how it works. Yeah. If we get, I mean, hopefully that is a great idea of having three people in a primary. Yeah.
That's why I wish 30 million Texans would run for governor in this race and all vote for themselves. That's what I wish every adult over the age of 30 that's lived here for 5 years would run for governor and vote for themselves.
As long as nobody gets 50%, there's going to be a runoff.
You get him to 50% or below, there'll be a runoff. And I can tell you from my perspective, and I can tell you from what the others have communicated to me, and they're men of integrity, and I have no reason to doubt them, we will marshal forces behind whoever that candidate is that's running against Greg Abbott.
That was one of my questions. I have a good microphone now. That was one of my questions. I'm very glad about that. That as long as you have three conservatives trying to remove Abbott, this is great. And so whoever you like, fight, knock on doors, whatever you're going to do. But eventually the goal is to remove Abbott.
And it can be done.
Oh,
yeah.
It can be done.
It will be done.
I got, Don's got a lot of money. He got telephones, televisions. I got teleperson. But I guarantee you, I'm going to put people in the voting booth on primary day that have never voted in a primary in Texas. I know my role in this. I know what I'm doing. People say, you don't have a chance. I said, let me tell you something. You better hope I stay in this race for a couple reasons. One, I will pull votes away from Greg Abbott. Two, you do not want me off the leash.
one reason that we end up electing conservatives, or we think they're conservatives, they run as conservatives, they go to Austin, and they kind of get off the reservation. A lot of what happens is actually lobbying money. That they said they were going to stand for something, but they need money, and I know it's a big question, but is that something you would like to rein in as governor, trying to
lobby, tax-funded lobbyists gotta go. Now here's the thing, everybody says that, nobody does it on either side. And you know what, the lobbyists, it's in their job description, they know they're supposed to be complained about. They know that politicians are supposed to say, we're going to get rid of lobbyists. Lobbyists are the biggest problem we're dealing with right now with those folks that are sitting in office. It's got to go. Got to go. Simple as that.
Too. One other thing before I forget about election integrity. So there was a lot of conversation about what happened in 2020, ongoing, and we'll find out what Arizona says and Georgia says. But some people are saying, we need to go back to flat out paper ballots, no electronic voting machines at all. Is that too extreme or not?
I agree with that. I echo that sentiment. It's a voting day, not a voting season. I don't believe in machines. Well, I mean, we're not this. What is it going to? It's going to turn into the Terminator or something, where the machines take over. I'm tired of machines. We can't even communicate anymore. Remember, we used to sit on the toilet and read shampoo bottles. We can't even get off the phones long enough to use the bathroom these days. I'm sick of machines. So we got to do that, and we need to have audits. We need to have as many people. Again, it goes back to the precinct chairs. It goes to more eyeballs, the people of integrity who are watching this election process. We've got to have as many people who are watching this process, auditing this process. The integrity of the American Idol election is stronger than the American election right now. These things shouldn't be. Got to get government out of the way. And so we've got to fight. Whatever it takes. What are we afraid of? And absolutely you should have to show your ID so you can vote. It's insanity. It's an insult to the black community to say that it's racist, that they're too ill-equipped or too ignorant to go get an ID. That's an insult to the black community. And that's got to stop. We need whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I don't care if we got to count it 5 times. We got to get back to election integrity.
Yeah, even if we don't know for a month who won, if they're sitting recounting, fine.
It's nonsense. Yeah. It's nonsense. I mean, anyway, that's enough.
Oh, I'm with it all the way. We need to get rid of the machines.
No machines.
Because we cannot.
They need to go.
Yeah, just let them all go. Okay, there were a bunch of hands up. Okay.
Right here. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I cannot pull this one out there.
I'm going to come to you. I'll repeat the question. Once you ask me. Hello?
You said the high school kids need to pass a test on knowing the Constitution.
Well, the citizenship test.
Citizenship test?
That doesn't mean they won't be citizens if they fail. But I do want them to at least know what it means to be a U.S. citizen.
Well, I think every candidate for office, from dog catcher all the way down.
I agree with that. Yes, ma'am. That's 100% right. We have the uneducated doing the job of the unwilling in politics these days, and that needs to end.
And how about term limits?
Well, we have. If we can get election integrity, then we can have term limits at the ballot box. You know, I'm all for legislating term limits. I don't understand. I mean, there's something special about that power. Once you get it, you don't want to give it up. I'm telling you, it's amazing to watch. I mean, Joe Biden, God bless him. I mean, he just stayed in politics so long his head turned to pudding. And you got to know what planet he's on. And 50 years in politics in Washington, D.C., I can't imagine wanting that. But I think we should legislate term limits. I think we should have election integrity so that we can guarantee term limits because we determine it at the ballot box. I don't think our elections just suddenly turned sour in 2020. I think they've been that way for a long, long time. And I mean, it's weird. $100 million to get a job that's going to pay you $153,000. Something about that doesn't match up.
Insider trading, you get access to
This guy has.
And you monetize everything.
You know, I love what you said about moving here and catching Texas.
Yes, sir.
I did 11 years ago from Illinois. I wouldn't go back to that state.
I wouldn't either.
Okay. The first year I was down here, I joined the Texas National Movement, and I'm a veteran. And I came down here, my family, all my daughters and my grandkids are up north. I don't go back up once a year, that's it. And I'm going to cut that out. I'm serious. It pains me to say that.
I understand.
I mean, I appreciate the preacher having his son have to move to Wyoming, which my one daughter wants to move to Montana, I go live with her. This country is in such terrible shape. The idea of Texas becoming its own republic again is appealing to me. And when I talked to Alan West, I've known Alan for 11 years, and he said, you should have the right, as the individual lives here, to at least put it to a vote. We're not asking to vote to leave the Union in 22. We just want to see if we have the right to put a referendum out, a non-binding referendum. What's your opinion on that?
100%, I agree. You know, whatever you want to call it, whether it's the Texas nationalist movement, whatever you want to call it, you deserve, as the people of Texas, when it comes to critical issues, not the least of which would be being your own nation and being able to legislate yourself, you should be able to vote on that. If it can make it through the House and wind up on the governor's desk, I think, put it to the vote of the people and let the people's will win out in that regard. You know, the Constitution of the United States is silent pretty much when it comes to the actual word secession. Article 1, Section 2 of our Texas Constitution says if you can abolish the government. If it's gotten too far out ahead, you can abolish it. We need to make that very clear, that we're the ones legislating Texas, not those bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Because God knows, those folks up there aren't living on the same planet we are here in the center of the universe in Texas. Yeah.
You know, on my show, I talk a lot about Marxism, and I did a little thing on it today because I think that when people use the words criticizing the government, they say, oh, that's communist, it's socialist, it's Marxist, and the words are flung around so much that they seem as though maybe you don't mean them seriously. But I'm trying to talk to people about the idea that when you are, the government's deciding in Washington that they can control your text messages. Recent thing out saying that, you know, that if you put text messaging information that they don't like about COVID, your phone company will block the text message. They're trying to do these things. I try to get to this idea, and I just wanted to have you generally speak to it. Isn't it better just to call it what it is? We're watching Marxism in Washington, or maybe you don't agree with that.
Critical race theory, it's Marxism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Call it that. I mean, everyone should.
Right. We should penalize those. In whether it's educational, so we should penalize that should not be espoused in the United States of America, much less the state of Texas. When you're talking about an ideology, an economic ideology, a philosophy of government that has destroyed in the 20th century more than 100 million human lives, destroyed them, physically murdered them, ended their life, this should not even have a seminal place in our minds in Texas. Absolutely not.
Mostly their own people.
Mostly their own people, because that's exactly what it does. By its very nature, it destroys.
Yeah.
And I don't care how you package it. You can call it democratic socialists, or you can call it, you know, critical race theory. You can call it critical theory, whatever you want to do. It's garbage. It's straight out of the pit of hell and it needs to go away. And we got to fight against it because it's here to destroy.
This gentleman at the end has had that several times.
Back to the election integrity, you know, it's 2024 is going to come quick, and grassroots can't stop the way they stole the election. I think we all know what happened from Lindell and all those guys, but as governor, you, Nome, DeSantis, they did it right in front of us. They did it again to the two senators. I mean, we watched them, you know, how it all happened. We couldn't stop the steal with Trump in the White House with with some good people around him. How do we do it now with them having 4 years to more or less galvanize that steal? Is there anything you could do in the governorship? I mean,
well, you know, on a federal level, on a national level, no, but you have to make sure that at least, you know, the state that has the leverage like a state of Texas does, we at least show the rest of the nation we've done it right. We're not afraid of audits. We're not going to put cardboard up in the window so people can look over our shoulder and see how we're tallying these votes. We've got to be able to do that to the degree that we can show that and demonstrate integrity, and all eyes are on it. I think we can start to influence that, because let's face it, you know, we're arguably anywhere at any given time between the 8th and the 12th largest economy in the world. We have the ability to leverage ourselves if we will have the, pardon me ladies, the cojones to do it. and hold Washington, D.C.'s feet to the fire in this electoral process and make sure that we're the ones. See, I don't want Texas to be one among 50. I want it to be the one.
Yes.
Yep.
I want it to be the one that everyone looks to as the last frontier, the bastion that's holding the flag for liberty and freedom and how things are done in America. I want our humble arrogance, if you will, to shine so that people catch that spirit from all over the place. You know, we talk about, I've got t-shirts in my business. I've been in the apparel business for 20 years. I've grown a great small business in the world of apparel. We put out funny t-shirts. I've got most likely to secede shirts out there. We've got Texas shirts. We've got, and they're conversation starters is what they are. And I love to put those things out there. And we'll put those things out there, and I'll get messages from people in Oklahoma. They say, take us with you. In Arkansas, and I always say that if we secede, then you can call me El Presidente. And we'll just take Oklahoma, and we'll take New Mexico, because we know they're not using it. And we'll ask Louisiana, because it's hard to kill a coon ass. You dump them in a ditch and pour dirt on them, and tomorrow they show up with a meal with ingredients they got out of the ditch. But all across the South, there's various places across the Midwest, they desire that. They want to legislate themselves and to be a shining example. There's patriots out there that want freedom, and they want to be able to demonstrate that. We're often compared to, and some of you have heard me say this ad nauseum, but I love it. South Dakota doesn't have its own toast. There's no waffle irons in the shape of Florida. We're Texas. We ought to be setting the standard in every way, culturally, politically, religiously. In terms of liberty, we should be setting the standard in every way. And to that degree, I think that's how we become the light on the hill. What made America so influential that it influences the rest of the free world, the rest of the world? That's what made us great, that idea. We got to get back to that idea of Texas and making Texas great. And I think to that degree, we make America great by default. People are coming here. Listen, if I could get away with it constitutionally and you moved here from California, I would love to put you in a probationary period where you couldn't vote in state politics for 4 years. I haven't explored that with the lawyers, but I promise you, it's in my back pocket because I want you to catch it before you ruin it. Catch the spirit of Texas.
Could not agree more. I tell you, when we moved here in the year 2000, we couldn't get the grins off our faces. We were like, wow, this is just great. And I grew up in New York, so love Texas. And I've actually said a lot of times, I'll tell you too, America is the beacon of liberty to the world. Like, we teach the world how to be free. And Texas is that for America. And I mean, that's how it felt when we came here. I don't like DeSantis. It's kind of making us look bad these days. The Florida governor, he's really kind of, and we need you to catch up with DeSantis.
I promise you, if I'm governor in the state of Texas, I'm gonna call DeSantis Little Ron. I'm gonna be like, hey buddy, let me show you how you freedom hard over here in the state of Texas. I've been with Ron. I think Ron's great. I think he did a fantastic job. The difference between Ron and Greg Abbott is Ron does it, says it, does it. Greg says it 5 days later.
Right.
That's right.
Nothing happens. He's just sitting there spending $25,000, $30,000 a week in polls to see what people are going to like. Then he comes out and that's what he says. Nothing happens.
That is actually very true. He's hugely known, Governor Abbott is, for polling everything and making decisions off of that. One last big question I do hear people talking about in Texas, well, the reason it's purplish and maybe go blue is because we have changing demographics. I'm not talking about Californians, that's one thing, but people make the argument that conservatism just doesn't fly with African Americans, doesn't fly with Mexican Americans, doesn't fly with Hispanics, which is so racially insulting, but I'd love to hear your answer to that.
Well, it is a lie. I think that it's just same as saying that all Californians coming to Texas are not conservatives. There's a lot of conservatives in California. There's just being, they're just, I could use strong words there. They're being abused by bureaucracy, right? You want to build a wall, build it around Sacramento. Don't let any of their legislation get out. I always say we ought to build a wall up the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Anything that sounds like a city in Mexico should go back to Mexico. We just build a wall. San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento. We just call it De Los Sacramentos. Oakland, that's Spanish Ebonics.
Did you forget the question? Can we convince Hispanics to embrace conservative values?
No, I'm just saying, I don't believe that the black community, which historically and traditionally have been a community of faith, they've been a people with strong family values, they've been a people who they believe in God, they believe in their Bible, they believe in the centralization of the church in their community. They've been lied to.
They're waking up.
And they are waking up. And I'll tell you this about the Hispanic community. You go down to the RGV, McAllen, Texas, look who just got elected mayor in that municipal race. I mean, I love going down there now. Those Latinos for Trump, or as Biden would say, Latinx. You talk about an insult. The Latinos for Trump and folks like that, I meet with them all the time. I love them. I love being around them. And they're waking up. They're seeing it. They've joined that train. But I want to tell you something beyond the shadow of a doubt that's going to change the cultures and the minorities and the cities and those that we're trying to reach, and that is prayer. We have got to pray for our state and our nation and those that are in leadership over us. We've got to pray. And that's not to be jingoistic. I'm not just trying to tell you that as a catchphrase. I'm telling you, we got to pray. And you've heard ad nauseum over and over again. We can't hear it enough. 1 Chronicles, my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways. Then when I hear from heaven, and I will heal their land. Those are the kind of things we have to do. Those things. See, but that gets us back into that community, and it gets us away from the squabble, and we don't like that. We love the squabble. It's hard to pray for Joe Biden. Hard. I mean, his own Catholic Church won't let him have communion, so I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but we've got to pray. And those are the kind of things you will see the change in heart. America, and I don't want to belabor this, America was built on a foundation of faith. It was built on the lies about our founding fathers, that they weren't people of faith and they were men who were deists that believed that God was just some clockmaker that wound things up and just left the earth to run on its own. Those are lies. That's not true at all. They were men of faith. They were men of deep faith. They were guided by the scriptures. They believed they were guided by the Holy Spirit. And they were men who guided those principles and established a freedom of religion. And they understood the centrality of what the church played in the community and in the culture and in the society and in its politics. And that's why when you read our founding documents, it is fraught with the idea of God's providence and his hand and his grace and his blessings. We've gotten away from that, thinking that we can win everything at the ballot or with fundraising or with whatever these secular ideas, and thinking that some man is going to be the Savior. And when I'm telling you, we've already had a man who's our Savior, who will lead us if we will bow the knee, humble ourselves, and get back to the priorities of praying and understanding that we're not the authority. Humanism isn't the religion, and it'll deal with these issues, make man a little God player, these ideas like Marxism. We got to humble ourselves and pray.
Amen to that. Karen was reminded one other question, and I actually talked about a bunch of my show today. So DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said today, with all these Cubans who are in the streets protesting, please give us our freedom. They're in the streets begging for liberty, waving the American flag. They're trying to get rid of communism. And Mayorkas said, he gave a speech saying essentially that don't come here, you Cubans. If you engage in maritime escape and you try to come to America, you cannot come here. With an administration that welcomes the southern border is pretty much open, and yet Cubans being told they can't come here. Just your thoughts on that?
They could get to Coahuila, Mexico. They can get in here easy. It's amazing, isn't it? Because this isn't about open borders and immigration and all this stuff and bringing people in. Bring us your poor, your huddled masses. These things that we love to hear liberals try to. Somebody posted on my thing this morning and they said a real Christian would be on the other side of the river with food and blankets and clothing and health care. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll bring them to your house and we'll open the bus there. These are the kind of things that it's a political ideology. They don't want those Cubans coming here the same reason they didn't want to support those protesters in Hong Kong before the COVID virus was released in China. Those people were pro-Trump. They were pro-America. They were singing our national anthem. They were pledging allegiance to our flag. Liberals don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. We're living in a world today where black politicians and black athletes are saying that the American flag is a symbol of hate. And so when they're doing it in places like Cuba, they don't want that. Barack Obama said he wanted to fundamentally change America. People say, why are they doing this? Barack Obama said he wanted to fundamentally change America. But Barack Obama said he wanted to fundamentally change America. If you think Joe Biden is in charge right now in Washington, D.C., I got some beachfront property in Arizona, me and George Strait own together. We'll sell it to you. That's what's happening, folks. It's absolute insanity, and it's right there. What we've got to do is we got to turn the tides. We know the narrative. You guys have heard Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, right? That's what they play by. That's what they use. You ever thought about taking those rules for radicals and using them as a conservative? And taking the fight to them and embarrassing them? We should embarrass this administration. Yeah. We should embarrass these people who are sitting. We should embarrass them, but we're afraid to do that. Who was it that said it, posted it today? Who was it? Our friend. He's not that good of a friend. I can't think of his name. who said, you know, would we conservatives be willing to go to jail for this? You know, these Democrat lawmakers, they want to get arrested. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
It fits the narrative. That's what they want to do. And these are the kind of things. When we get serious enough and passionate enough to chase the vision of what we feel is right, we'll get radical enough to make a difference in that regard.
One thing I love about you and Don Huffines and Alan West is because it seems like our side, you're alluding to it a little bit, our side's always on the defense. No, we're not racist. No, we're not mean. We're not homophobic. We're not xenophobic. We're defending ourselves and to express this positive vision of America's founding ideas, the greatness of America, the Constitution, the greatness of Texas. This is appealing to people. People hear you, a person like you speaking, or Don Huffines or Alan West, and they're listening, think, yeah, what he said. And what he said. And I love that about all three of you campaigning. I hope you can continue this positive, just effusive love of liberty and America and Texas. Honestly, I think that will galvanize the voters more than anything else.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. I'll just say this and I'll hush and get out of your hair. Thank you for the time tonight. Thank you for the questions. And thank you for that. And let me just say, I come out of the world of comedy. Mocking and ridiculing is in my job description. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, fat, skinny, male, female, or trans. I'm going to make fun of you. So I'm going to call things the way they are. That's the beauty of the way it is. Because if I'm going to make fun of myself, I get to make fun of you too. And we get to have fun together, right? That's one of the things that's beautiful. And to your point right there, that's why I don't mind taking the fight to them. You can't cancel me. You can't cancel me. Years ago, I was in the corporate world, and I made a decision that I was going to step out on nothing and go make a living just being myself. And people said, what's the street value on your personality? And I went out and built a career just being me. And now I swore I wouldn't get involved in politics, and here we are. Here we are. I believe in it. I'm passionate about it. I have conviction about it. And I'm telling you, I'm here for the fight. I'm here to hold up the arms of whoever is challenging Greg Abbott. I'm here to be an intercessor, here to be a warrior with them. And if you don't think so, trust me, we're going to get underhanded and wild up in here. It's going to get Western. Go to Beto22.com. And I appreciate you guys. God bless y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, I reached out to your campaign to get you on, invite you to my show, and I didn't ever hear back. Tell me who I can talk to.
Me. I'll make sure you get it.
Okay. Let me just put your contact information on my phone.